Good evening and welcome to the Obelisk on this super pink moon. Brings back memories of Nick Drake. Tonight's guest is Masaki Miyagawa. Masaki is an author, speaker, and consultant based in Los Angeles. He has over 10 years of experience in the esoteric field, and his family has been involved in Buddhist studies for over 400 years. Masaki is currently teaching meditation classes and available for personal numerology consultations. His website and links are in the description. Masaki, Niish, how you guys doing on the eve of the apocalypse? On this fine Passover, too. Happy Passover to our Jewish listeners.
Yes, it's Passover. Shalom. Masaki, it's great to have you on the program.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm a listener. I checked out some of your shows. My good buddy, Rock Castaldo.
Oh, we love
talk
Rock.
with you guys. So. Yeah, and you know, it's funny because you know, in our area, we come from all different directions, but I find that especially somebody like Ra coming from the Italian strega tradition,
Yes.
right? I come from a old Buddhist temple line, which is the Vedism, the swastika culture. But
Yes.
guess what? What we think is like 99% the same. So there's something going on with like minds, you know.
Oh, yeah. The threads are there
Yeah,
all across the board.
there's not a lot of daylight between a lot of us.
Yeah. Well, I'll just throw this out real quick, but pertaining to like the Ra and me, there was a lot of high culture and knowledge that came from Persia, and the Buddha was connected to Persia. He is thought to be, you know, one of the Scythians or the Saks or the Saka clan. So, you know, the Persian, you know, and that was one base, that Central Asia, kind of Middle Eastern area. It went east and west, so it influenced the East and Asia, but it went, you know, highly influenced like Italy and so forth.
Well, Asian culture is so old. I mean, it's so much older. So,
Is it?
I would say what happened was the so-called West, the more like white peoples, they were dominated and conquered first.
yeah.
So then when the so-called archontic force started to take over, it was the more outer areas like Asia that were conquered last. So that's why it seems like Asia has retained a lot, is because we haven't been under such like colonization as long. So,
Yeah, well, that's actually what I mean, is that there's still a chain of custody with information and lineage and all that. There's still, it's like you look at these other cultures and we have to dig into archival, you know, we have to do digs and stuff. It seems like the continuity is there within Chinese, Japanese, Tibetan stuff.
right. Well, and then, you know, you get into these areas. I'm interested in kind of like occultism or metaphysics in general, but because I came out of a family line that's directly connected to a temple, a Buddhist temple in Japan. That's like that was our family business for like 400 years, right? After getting into more like the internet kind of like alt research, it's tying back to when I was young as a little boy in the Buddhist temple here in LA, absorbing this information, but now I'm looking at it in a totally different way, you know. So it's just interesting that I think there's really only one story on the planet under many different names, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree. So were you, what's the transition between Shinto and Buddhism?
Well, Shinto is I would say more indigenous so-called religion of Japan. Now, I wrote an article on my Patreon, which is Pyramid Power on Patreon, and I wrote a couple articles about kind of like hidden Japan or secret Japan or occult Japan, right? So one of the articles I
Ooh,
wrote,
I like that.
one of the articles I wrote was about I don't think I said Shinto, but I said Japan, land of Inanna question mark. Because basically if you break it down, the mainstream, they will say Shinto is an animist religion similar to, you know, a lot of the old cultures, or say like people would say Native American, like the rocks have a spirit, the river has a spirit, and that's part of it. But one of the central, I guess, worship objects, or there's objects in, they have a Shinto altar, right? It's the moon, or it's a circle. It's a mirror, but it's the circle. But then the base is shaped like a crescent, right? Well, that's the goddess. And
Oh,
then
yes.
one of the progenitor gods of Japan, which was canonized when they officially started the sort of like the nation of Japan in like 600 AD or something like that, is Amaterasu, the sun goddess. And there's a whole myth about it, but basically she said literally, worship the mirror as if you were worshiping me. So in a lot of the Shinto, they have a Shinto shrine, and then they have Buddhist temple. There's sort of
Yes.
two separate things, but definitely, you could go through a lot of the symbology in Japan is highly connected to the goddess, which is all over the world. There's a lot of also very northern hemisphere symbolism, which people may more closely associate with like the Celtic or the Celts, and say the old Slavs and those kind of pagan
Norse
symbols. Because my father's side has a totem. Like basically in Japan, I think one thing about Japanese culture, as far as I know, is that it may be one of the few or maybe the only Asian cultures that has heraldry, right? Just like Europe, they have the heraldry with the shield, the family crest, and so forth. Well, in Japan, typically the boys get one symbol, which we call mon, is MON. So the males get the mon from the father, and the women or the girls get a mon from the mother's side. And it's maintained. It goes down the lines like that. So my father's,
what's it called for the girls?
It's called mon.
Oh, for both. Okay.
Yeah. So so my side I got from my dad is the stag horns, right? The horn god, which is is basically Enki,
yada yada yada,
yada,
Lucifer.
but it's I think it's like Veles in the with the Slavic culture, but basically horn god that's all over the place. Is
Pan, all that.
Pan, yeah.
Yeah. And my mother's side,
Kononos.
her mon is the goose, which is connected to the phoenix and the bird.
Fertility too, I think.
So that's the bird tribe, which is there's the snake clan, like the Naga, and then the bird tribe.
So you guys are like a bunch.
That's a whole other story, but basically you could see a lot of things in Japanese culture that Japan was the recipient, or sort of the end point of the so-called Silk Road. So we received a lot of culture, not just from China, Korea, but we got a lot of culture going all the way, possibly to Egypt, but definitely Persia, Central Asia, and so forth. And this is one thing I've noticed, that in people's collective consciousness, at least in the West, but in general, uh, we seem to put a lot of importance on Rome and Greece. But those were sort of latecomers, in my opinion. That Central Asia region, maybe from Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Those are just names, because none of those existed. But in that general area, it was a real hot spot for some very powerful bloodlines. And
Yeah.
these bloodlines went all over the place. So I believe that we have this in Japan. Now, the people in Japan, they have an Asiatic face, but definitely we receive the culture, and I believe there's probably some bloodline trace even going down to today.
Where did the samurai fit into that?
Well, interestingly enough, you're looking at a former samurai family, because my family were priests, but well, a lot of people are talking about reset now with Tartaria.
Mud floods, orphan trains.
Well, my family has survived resets because we had a warring states period, just like Italy had a number of small states, right, that fought, and then they consolidated to, you just got to two sides. So in 1600, they had a major battle in Japan, the Battle of Sekigahara, and my family was on the losing side. And then the winner, was the Tokugawa clan that started the shogunate for, the next couple hundred years, right? But that time, people they lived in the same area for hundreds of years, right? And in Asia, I guess the honor and the name is very important. So basically, if you lost a major war like that, like your name is S, right? So you had the choice of basically suiciding your whole line, or you would probably get killed. They would probably do it for you, or you could move far away and change professions. So my family went from samurai to priest. Yeah,
it's an interesting transition.
Isn't there, so with the samurai, as with all martial art type, I'll leave that alone, but with all like war fighting mentalities, there's the spiritual side and the inner side, the inner martial art. And is that part of the samurai tradition?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm most familiar with the temple and the priests, but I can tell you, as far as that kind of warrior culture, is definitely connected to the steppes of Eurasia, because and actually, the composition of Japan today is probably different than it was before, say, like before Japan was officially started, because there were waves, just like everywhere. There were waves of migration, and I think the original peoples, they have I don't know if you heard the Ainu. They're sort of like Japan's like native Indians, right?
Yes, yeah.
But the Ainu people, they have a different culture and a different racial makeup than the later Asiatics, who were more of maybe a Korean or what people think of Japan. There were mainland Asiatics that went to Japan, and they brought the horse riding culture, the archery, the swords, and so forth. But where does this horse riding culture come from? It comes from the steppes of Eurasia, which included people that are more what people consider like Mongolian, but it also was the old Slavs, or the Cossacks, And one of the things that a lot of people don't know is the Buddha, right? He is the Aryan prince, and typically considered to be Indian, but really where his tribe was based was, you could say it was northern India or southern Persia because there's an overlap. So that area of Pakistan, Afghanistan, there used to be Sakastan, and the title of the Buddha was Shakyamuni or Shakyamuni Buddha. So the Shakyamuni or Sakamuni or Shakyamuni is Lord or King of the Sakas or the Saks. But what's Sak? Well, it's basically the same root word as Cossack, or they have Kazakhstan or Saxon, like Anglo-Saxon. So, and a lot of people say that he was a Scythian, which was like it was one of the Slavic tribes, and
Darth Buddha
connected to he was connected to Persia. So, and you can see this in Buddhism. A lot of the typical symbols. Well, number one of the main symbols of Buddhism is the swastika. So that already tells you something. We could talk about that because the swastika.
Let's go down that route. Let's go down that path, and because we do see it everywhere in India as well, and so.
Okay, well, let me spit out some of the things, and then we could go over them. So there's the swastika. Then in Buddhism there's the eightfold path, but it's a literal wheel, right? That's important. And there's other things like I mentioned before. One of the totem animals of the Buddha is the deer. They have a deer park in Nara, in Japan.
Also the stag, right?
Well, the stag is the deer.
Is the deer, yeah.
I wanted to throw that in before I didn't get a chance. That you and your wife are horny birds.
So
no,
yeah,
okay.
and the Scythians, they have a lot of, it's kind of odd that these so-called barbarians that roam the steppes, they had very fine metalwork, and one of the typical like belt buckles or ornaments they had is the deer or the stag. So swastika. Well, swastika culture is Vedism, right? And
yes, from India, right? Correct.
Well, India is, I think, one half of it, but the other half was the more white peoples from the north.
Yeah. Yes, but I think that people get lost in that and forget that it's still alive and active.
India basically has the most preserved Vedic culture because, like I was saying, well, look at all the Gnostics, so-called, that were genocided, right? They spent a lot of time getting rid of that Vedic culture in other parts of the world, but you can call it Arianism also, and I think Aryan has a connection to Orion, right? This is part of the Orion culture.
Yes.
Wait! I thought they were from Aldebaran.
Well, let me just present.
All right.
Let me just present this. That there's a lot of things in the Sanskrit, right, in the Vedas, that's talking about events in the far north that could only be seen from above, or I guess far above the equator. So probably because it was oral, and then at a later time it was transcribed.
That reminds me of the Bach saga.
Well, we see this importance of the far north in a lot of places, sometimes in the collective subconscious, and people may laugh at this, but I think it does bear some significance. People that know Superman had the Fortress of Solitude,
right,
in the far north, and what was he doing? Using crystal computers, right? So yeah, there was there actually are large megalithic blocks in the far north. You're talking like Siberia, the Arctic Circle on the Russian side, that nobody even really talks about. They talk about, is it Göbekli Tepe?
Göbekli Tepe,
yeah, in Turkey. Siberia is amazing. Siberia has jewels.
You hear about like Baalbek, but nobody talks about these huge megalithic blocks, because it was so long ago that it got blown up,
Yeah.
past cycles. But
And there's reasons we can't go there.
yeah, well, they don't want you seeing the good stuff.
Right. Same with the.
Yeah,
I think the same is true of Antarctica as well. So.
And I'm most well known for the pyramid work, the orgone or orgonite pyramids, and a lot of us, we use shungite. And it's very interesting that there's only one deposit of the carbon-60 shungite
in Siberia.
It's that far north area, but
it's also in Siberia where they were constructing with a military village the highly sought after Siberian blue quartz with the cobalt that they were making to ward off American tech in the Cold War.
Yeah, it's there's also there was an Indian guy. It might have been like 100 years ago. He wrote a book about the Arctic Vedic culture. His name was Bal Gangadhar Tilak, so people can check him out. I think it's called Arctic Home in the Vedas. But basically, there's a lot of little anecdotes that kind of point towards the origin of the Vedas was from the far north, and I've even heard that these groups might have come through a portal in the North Pole and then descended down to the rest of the planet that way. But as far as the swastika, if you take the Big Dipper through the 4 seasons, it creates a swastika. And I think in the center is like Orion's belt. So again, we're dealing with the Orion Wars, right? Because you have the Syrian group and the Orion.
It's not Orion, it's Polaris.
Well, I'm as far as the pole star now in the center, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Orion's on the other side of the sky.
Right. So you're correct. It's the Polaris, and this is interesting too because it shifts. The pole star shifts. It used to be Alpha Draconis, so that might mean something. Right. Yeah.
If those things are even real.
So, well, yeah, because I think
they're real as egregores, at least.
Well, I think Ross talked about this, right? That probably the stars are not what we think they are.
Yeah, no, I don't.
You don't go there in a ship.
No, they're on the dome. They're like they shine through the dome.
Yeah, you probably go through like either a spiritual portal or portals on Earth or something like that.
Stargates in Baghdad.
Inner.
But yeah, so there's just a lot to show with the swastika that it's connected somehow to the astrological constellation of Orion. Like Jerry was saying, there's Polaris in the center right now,
and it marks the seasons.
Yep, and and so the Buddhism is an offshoot of the Vedism, and it's an interesting thing, which I found. And I don't know everything. I'm just kind of noting what I find. But one great contradiction that I'm still trying to figure out is, on the one hand, is definitely a culture or a knowledge base with great wisdom, right? But at the same time, these were some of the most, warlike and bloodthirsty groups that were also coming through these traditions. So on the one hand, even going down to say World War II, I think the swastika and the Vedism, both Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan had some faint memory, or they were trying to, just like Indiana Jones, right? We're the Nazis in the first movie. Well, it opens up in Tibet, right? Like, why are the Nazis in Tibet? Well, you know why? Because they're looking for the ancient knowledge in these swastika areas.
No, Northern Africa too. They were pretty.
Yeah, they spent a lot
there.
of money, and, especially like in that time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think Germany is like maybe the size of Texas. Now they were taking over Europe and so forth, but they put a large significance on finding, whatever they were looking
occult
for.
Devices.
Yeah, it's like occult
SS. Yeah.
So,
the two
yeah, so I think that's definitely one reason besides geopolitical, why Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan allied was under this swastika culture. That's sort of like a maybe like a lower aspect, and I would say that fascism is the lower aspect of Vedism, because
Mhm.
if you come from a purely 3D perspective, you're going to start thinking about master race, right? But if you've been through things that you guys have been through, or people that watch your show, then you know that these are kind of just roles we play, the racial types and so forth.
Yeah.
So how can you say like, well, one's superior to another when you just swap roles? Like you're like white,
Yeah.
black,
Yep.
Asiatic, and so forth.
And we're all
Yep.
part of the same hand above the water, you know, as they say.
But if you want to get the goodies, what do? You lock down people and you start raiding and finding that where these things are hidden and where they're generated from. And that's where, like, on a strictly 3D plane, where some of this fascist stuff comes in. You control and dominate, and then you raid and pillage and get the good stuff you want. So you can see how it becomes like a control the people and then find the goodies.
Well, you know, also it's more difficult to play the higher aspect, because if you're just going all out, like a lot of the fascists or more archontic mindsets have done,
Like what's happening right now.
You don't care about the rules, right? You just go
Right.
and slaughter and kill. But then if you're coming from a higher perspective, you have to kind of deflect and do strategic moves to not directly make the karma blow back on you.
Right.
It's a more difficult role to play.
Yeah, and this is why there's a multi-tier aspect to these operations, so to speak. You know, this is why there's a warring section, and you know, it's complex, and yet you know, it's nuanced. But at this point, don't you think that a lot of the ancient tech was commandeered and accessed, say, in the past?
Yeah, but at the same time too, I think you can only go so far, no matter how advanced you are with the technology. You know, because ultimately you do come to a point where you have to have some kind of spiritual power.
Yeah. Oh, 100% agree.
If you don't have it, the only thing you can do is vampirize and use others to get that to use for your own purpose, right? But if you look at where we are at this pinch point, that's probably, you know, we may not live to see it, but I think that whatever this singularity point is coming in this century, right?
I think we've already hit it, and we're in a retrocausality loop.
So,
because it doesn't matter, Masaki, when it happens. When it happens, and because of the nature of it happening, it's
I'm
gonna
talking
push
about this.
backward
I'm just thinking about this linear line that we're kind of on now. But of course, it's happened before, it's happening now, and it's going to happen in the future.
He doesn't mean the AI singularity.
But
it could, though.
He's talking more eye of the needle kind of thing, like Randy Magus talks about.
So, but in any case, if you were talking about AI, right, it's kind of a dead end. So again, it's like you can only go so far. Like, what are you going to do? Live in the 3D forever? Even that breaks down after a certain point, right? So,
as we're seeing now.
So, I mean, it's just like interesting that so much information is coming out now, or let's say in the recent past, last 5 years. But then I think even more is going to come out. But I think we'll be so busy just like doing our thing and adapting and shifting, because I don't think what's happening right now, this kind of like general chaos, which I did put out a free report in September 2019 saying this would be the year. I think a lot of us knew. I just didn't know it would be this lockdown. But I don't think things are going to slow down to the late 2020s. So there's going to be even more coming out, but we probably won't have much time to kind of let it marinate because we'll be busy doing our thing and surviving.
Yeah,
I think we can do well, but it's going to be like this for the next 5+ years.
Well, this is also
2026 is a key date too for people to keep in mind. It's even at least now that I believe the Masons have put that out as well in public.
Sure.
It wasn't in public with the Masonic Lodge, but I believe it's out now.
I think sorry. No, I was going to say I think this is getting us ready for the Pluto return for America. Yeah, that's coming next year. Next year.
Oh. Well, 2024 and 2026 I think are significant dates. So, yeah, and that also, if you're an open-minded reader, let's say in astrology, I kind of this is no offense to anybody. This is my own personal opinion, and
being offended is a personal choice.
Absolutely.
The so-called QAnon movement did open a lot of people's eyes, but when they're looking at like a new Camelot or a return to the Golden Age, I don't see anything in the astrology that tells me that.
Yeah,
I think that it's individually. I think people that are metaphysicians can do very well.
Yes, I agree.
Even I'm surprised that in this time so I'm in LA. California is like very locked down. It seems like a lot of the so-called blue states are more locked down than some of the others.
Yeah.
But even I'm surprised. I'm getting quite a few orders, and I've talked to other people that sell or make energy tools such as the copper tensor rings, orgonite pyramids. We are all getting a lot of inquiries and orders, and I think it's connected to people focusing attention. This sort of Saturnalian restriction that's happening right now. People are going, okay, this 5G stuff, I think I better cover myself and so forth. So I think that's filtering down to us. And if you're a reader, if like I do numerology, but any kind of reading, tarot, astrology, so forth, I think that look at what's happening. It's not just a small section of society.
It's the world.
Everybody in the whole world. Guess what? There are not enough readers to service the public. So you can be very busy if you have an interest, or you've been dabbling in it and so forth, or if you just want to start doing it now. That's what I've been telling. There's no time left. It's time to go operational. And I think the years that we spent being the kooks and the weirdos, all them hours you spent listening to shows like yours and all our friends and so forth, the value is showing now, because this kind of thing, we know that it has value, but to the average person, it's like, what kind of practical value does it have? Well, now the normies are living in our world.
Yeah. There's nothing like a major event. If this were a dream, it's so over the top, you would question, am I dreaming? Right? Because you're looking at a world under lockdown and all these crazy stories and narratives intertwining, and all the fear and speculation and theories, that it's so over the top that it is bursting these bubbles of normalcy finally.
Oh yeah. Well, let me ask you guys, because I just predicted forecast what I had forecast from the numbers. The 2020 is in the typical numerology. You don't have the 22 in a year count, but I would say it's literally 2020. You see the 22, right? So I would count it as a 22-4, and 4 you can connect to Aquarian or Uranus Aquarius energy. So what does that tell you? It's gonna be chaotic, right? But that 22 I think you guys might know the 11, 22, 33 are considered so-called master numbers, right? The 11 would be psychic channel. 22 would be master builder or so-called master mason. 33 would be spiritual teacher, right? So 22, the idea is you take a next level idea and then you implement it over time, probably not even a month or a few months, it could be years, right? To build a structure, it could be a literal building, it could be a social organization, or it could be the 2030 plan, you know? So that's why I said this year would probably be the year of the financial reset. But
yes,
I'm posing it to you guys. I didn't think it would be a lockdown like this. I just thought financial collapse, you know, that kind of stuff. So
it's funny. I've had this. I had February on my calendar for a couple years. I always look ahead, and at the ephemerides. I use the Rosicrucian one in particular, but I had this marked on in the side notes, and I've been talking about it like a lot of us, who look at these the astrology and the stars, and I knew it was going to be severe. I had no idea that it was going to result in like a world lockdown. And then there were people like Joni Patry who said, expect the new 9/11. And so she was taking, and she's a Vedic astrologer. And so, yeah, here we are. It really, I think, exceeded all of our predictions.
Well, you know what? I think the powers that be are kind of at a loss too, because I really feel that it's not just chaos for us, it's chaos for them.
Yes, absolutely.
And that might be good for us, but the S hitting the fan for the unprepared and the majority of the public who's more normie.
You can say shit, it's okay.
It's we had years for this to sink in.
Yeah.
And a lot of us were doing our own balancing, our own healing, our own soul excavation. So, we've already been through it.
Yes.
Many of us, right? But then the average public, this is hitting them in a period of like days to weeks.
Oh, yeah. It's like it's a lightning bolt, right? It's very lightning. It's very The Tower for a lot of people.
Oh my God. I just pulled it.
It's the
Jerry.
Jerry put up the card. It's it's the Trump Tower, right? So
you were talking about tarot, and I remember that I got this new deck this week called the Orion's Tarot deck.
Oh, there you go.
Sexy.
And it's an animal-based deck, and I was looking at two of the cards. Where'd it go? The Devil card. Now I'll put links to these in chat.
Oh, I like the look of these.
Look at that.
That's what's up.
And this one,
that's what's up.
The lionfish and the tower. Anyway, it's a beautiful deck.
One of the things I like about what you bring to the table, Masaki, is you have there's something effervescent about you, and with your messaging as well, instead of dark and doomy, because this is an easy time for people to get really into those storylines.
Well, I'm glad you say that, because a lot of people say I'm too dark.
Oh, no. Well,
I'm a Scorpio sun and a Taurus rising, so I'm a hardhead. But
all that fixed energy.
I'm double fixed, so I'm a hard head. But when I do readings, I ain't gonna really focus too much on the so-called good stuff. I'll mention it. I'm gonna be real with you, and I'm gonna tell you, if I see your chart's jacked up, I'm gonna tell you your chart's jacked up, because guess what? It's the more hard aspects that you need to focus. The good stuff is gonna roll out no matter what.
The good stuff rolls out. Nothing gets done without the squares and the oppositions. That's that's our fuel. But your messaging and the way you come forward, down to even your vocalizations are there's just something, like I said, I think the word is effervescent. Even though you're giving it to us raw, and that's nice. I mean, I think anyone appreciates no sugarcoating, but you're not like, I'm going to the hills and I'm shooting anyone who hits the tree line.
It's raw with a positive frequency behind it is what it is.
Well, you know, if I thought it was all no hope, I would just quit, right? But I'm telling you that what I really feel is that there's at least a space for us, our kind of people, to carve out.
Yeah.
I do feel that what's happening is waking a lot of people up, or a lot of people that were on the fence. Like I was saying, I'm getting hit up by people that had thought about getting some, you know, energy pendants or pyramids or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is forcing them off the fence. They're like, shoot. And let me tell you, I am totally sold out of a lot of items.
Oh,
because,
I imagine. Yeah.
Because I'm only one guy, right? And a lot of the smaller items I make when I'm making pyramid, like when I make a pyramid, you always make more resin than you're going to use. So I pour that off and I make smaller pieces. Well, I'm like completely cleaned out. I may even have to, you know, get a helper now.
Oh, that's excellent. See, the end of the world's booming for you.
Well, you know, the thing.
I'm just joking with the end of the world, though. I don't think
the thing is right. Like, I think. Well, I'll tell you this. I'm as disturbed as anyone else by what's going on, simply because I'm a human being, and when I go to the Trader Joe's and I see the shelves totally cleaned out, like now it's kind of more back to normal. But I specifically went. There was a day I specifically went when somehow everybody in LA knew that was the day they had to get 6 months of toilet paper for some reason, right?
Yes.
That's disturbing. But on the other hand, I, like you and many others, we knew something like this was coming.
Absolutely.
But especially for the work that I've been doing, I feel extremely confident, because I only see growth. And then you could explain that through the Uranus and Taurus transit and other things, right? But basically, what I've been telling people is now's the time. There's quote unquote no time left in a positive sense. It's time to get off your butt and go. Let's boogie, and let's, you know, adapt. And the energy is there, like you said, that key date 2026.
Yes.
While this chaos is going on, guess what that produces? It produces a lot of people that need answers they're not getting from the standard source. They're at their wits' end, so they're like, you know what? I don't even believe in this stuff, but let's see what this reader has to say, right?
Yeah.
Or, you know, with, in general, the ramping up of the cell tower frequencies, the Wi-Fi, the so-called 5G, a lot of people, they want the tools. And you know what? There's room for everybody.
Yes, I say that constantly. That is such a big, gigantic idea that needs to be heard, because the dream of not enough is a terrible reality to live in, and it also creates this cutthroat reality. And that is, I just don't know why people want to feed that kind of tulpa.
Well, you know, it's not like I give away the farm, because there are certain proprietary things that I do with my pyramids. But if it's a legitimate question and it's about one-on-one about doing something, I say, look, here's the information. You go and do it. Because some people ask me, because, you know, I have powered pyramids. Ra has some of my pyramids. And it's extremely powerful. But some people want to go from zero, having not cast anything, to going to where it took me several years to do that. So what I say is, like, start with the 101 and then work your way up. And basically what I do, like, I would say 99% is on the internet. That's actually how I started. I was interested. I looked at the 101, how to cast orgone or orgonite pyramid, the materials. I mean, many people have seen them. You might see these pyramids at holistic fairs and so forth. It's was really originated by this man Don Croft in the 1990s. He set the formula and the positive mentality to the whole movement, which is very DIY. So anybody could come to it in their own way. But the composition of the pyramids is plastic resin, which holds it together. You have your quartz crystal, and then you have metal particles or metal shavings. And it sounds crazy, but you can douse or muscle test it or experience it yourself. If it's made in the correct way, you will get better sleep because it's basically produces a high etheric energy. And I also add shungite, which really kicks the power up. You know.
Do you put any quartz in there too?
Oh, you need quartz crystal.
Yeah, right, because that compresses in the resin and produces that piezoelectric effect, which powers.
Yeah, I mean, it's that tells you something too, that you can make a piece that works from the first time. Now, it may not be, basically I worked it up to an art type level, right? But if you're just looking for the energy, you can do it. The information's online. So that tells you they didn't teach us something in school, because how could this produce such a healing effect? And one great thing with the energy tools also, which I think is necessary, just like everybody, they have a pair of running shoes, or if it's, we have like a winter coat or something like that. I think the time we're in now, you need to have a proper, say, tensor ring pendant or energy pendant, and you need to have some sort of energy tool on your bedstand, whether it's a shungite pyramid, an orgonite pyramid, a large tensor device, just because of the time we're in. But the EMF, as a practicality, I say definitely
shungite.
Do that.
Yeah.
But the side benefit, I think you guys know, is it bumps your mentation and your consciousness up.
Yes. I can't get enough of, personally, the Siberian blue quartz, especially if depending on, especially, I like the old stuff. There's still a little bit of the old blue around, and it's hard. You have to know what you're looking at. But even the lesser stuff with less cobalt in it, the actual element. But the thing about it that makes it so potent is, the Russians developed it to be a weapon and to protect. And so it's like any of the physics within the crystal industry that went into computer making and into weapons making. And I went down that rabbit hole a while ago, and then got some, and then sourced some of the original dark, heavily saturated cobalt. And it is unbelievable. Now I can't have enough. And so it's one of those things that I have been saying kind of passively, because it's already expensive, and I have enough now. But I mean, it's one of those things that if you work with it, because it is absolutely military grade, especially if you're getting some of the Vogel cut stuff, you can see astounding effects from it, as far as deflecting some of the scalar energy that's out there. The New Age community co-opted it, and that's great, and that's actually what brought it into our common world, thankfully. And so but I just wanted to throw that out there at the Siberian blue, and it'd be interesting to see the level of what you do with some Siberian blue in it.
Well, I mean, definitely the materials you use, like if you're working with the orgonite or orgone pyramids, follow the basic recipe. But even I was surprised the first time I used real gold in there, because I held off because it costs money. Real gold's expensive, right? But I said, man, I ran through all the basic materials. Yeah, okay. Let's try this real gold. When it came out, I was like, wow, it's really powerful. So,
yeah.
There's a reason the Anunnaki wanted the gold.
Yes.
I have a question for you. Have you heard of this guy, Mike Emery, who talks about orgone bubbles?
Yes, I think that now this is just my opinion.
Yeah, please.
What they are doing I think you should only go into it if you know what you're doing.
Ah.
Because see, the Organite, you're using the energy of the materials.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are doing what they're doing, you are going into magical work.
Yes.
Because they are basically dealing with thought forms and tulpas.
Yes.
And I've already seen people running into problems. So, you know, basically what Jerry is referring to is there are people charging, you know, various castings. Some of them are even plaster, which you can't really do with Organite, because Organite, you really should use the plastic resin. But they're charging castings, but they are invoking names. They're invoking, you know, and we don't even really know what is becoming attached to their castings, because they could be elementals. They could be a number of entities. You really don't know.
Everything is demons anyway, so.
So, you know, and look, in this Aquarian age we're moving into,
that's
the
way
door
it goes.
is wide open.
Right.
But just understand, people, you can't blame the church. You can't blame your daddy.
Oh.
You are now the magician. But if it blows back on you, that's also your responsibility. So I saw, and again, this is just my personal opinion. People are free to do what they're going to do. But I have seen posts which seem to mysteriously get deleted very quickly. People that are having problems. One lady said, "Is it normal for your bubble to start speaking to you and phantom hands on your face?"
Oh dear.
No. Yeah.
There was another lady, and you know, maybe it had nothing to do with the bubble, but said her life was ruined and she was quitting. So you will never have these problems with the basic Organite or Orgone pyramids.
Correct.
But as soon as you start basically doing magical work, because it's all the intention and thought form, you better know what you're doing.
Basically, what they're doing, what to me it seemed like drawing spirits into stone or crystals or whatever.
Matter.
Yeah, into matter. You know, the Romans and Greeks practiced this with their statues. So, I mean, it's not new.
Well, also, I happen to notice that the guru of this movement writes in all caps. That should
he does. Oh my God, it's horrible. If you ever read his essays,
that's a red flag, I think.
He's old. I'll give him a pass on that one.
Well, let me mention another thing. I won't mention the exact name because I don't want to be like, it's this guy and it's that guy. Okay. But there's a certain, you know, speaker has been on the circuit for a while, claims to be the descendant of mantis beings. And I said, you know, this guy's an astral raper.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even like to, because, you know, in the area that we're in, and I'm sure you guys have seen a lot.
I know who you're talking about now.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
there's so much going on, and it's kind of like you don't really want to talk about it too much because you want people to keep the vibe up. But honestly, you guys know that you know, there's this in our area. Either the people are honestly putting information out and they don't have any agenda, or why do you know so much about certain things and why are you talking about certain stuff? And that's why I mainly am just a guest on shows now, because I used to do interviews and I stopped because when I got to the far edge and I saw what was going on, it's like I'm getting traumatized. I got to pull back.
Yeah, we just started a new show when that happened to us.
Yeah,
it's a challenge. You know what, Masaki? I'm interested in your perspective on an energetic level as to what's going on with the virus that is about the collective. And I said energetic specifically.
Well, I mean, what I think is probably not too different from what you guys pick up, but number one, the powers that be are, you know, just by putting that fear vibe out, you're pushing people's frequency down.
Yeah.
Right.
Which they though?
Well,
the physical ones or the non-physical ones?
I would have to say it's non-physical because like I meant, like I think we mentioned before, I think the so-called banker types and the guys, the CEOs hiding in their bunkers, I think they're at a loss too, because I think
Yes.
whatever happened,
Yeah.
it didn't happen on their schedule, and I think a good thing for us is, this thing does have a certain time scale,
Hmm.
and now, like in New York, they said the cases are 75% down. Like the hot spot is now Long Island, because it can and then I don't want to say too much, but it seems like it's not the millions of deaths they were talking about.
Yeah, they keep lowering that. The model keeps changing, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, if you want to get into it, we could talk about it. But yeah, I know all about that.
So basically, they destroyed the world economy for 0.01%. And guess what? That anger mode, it's coming. That's probably why we got like hundreds of tanks in Riverside.
Yeah.
Yep. I've been saying for a couple of weeks now that I think that this was a bank bailout masked in a pandemic.
Oh,
see, I think that's definitely part of it. I think there's so much more going on. I think the money only goes so far. It goes to the top of the pyramid, and that's like getting to 33rd degree if we're talking, degree systems. And then there's an above that doesn't even care about money. That is the physical realm. That's the material realm. There's something going on that's piggybacking an energetic takeover, a possessive kind of thing, like we saw in Body Snatchers and all that kind of stuff that's been seeded to us for years.
Can I tell? Maybe because I told you guys I had some vivid dreams, and I think both
share those, please.
I think both of them, they could relate to what's going on now. Now, I'm not one that has these kind of dreams. Like, I'll have a significant dream like once a year or every couple of years. But since I do work with the powered pyramids, which is basically, it's that high scalar energy. People call it the orgone. It's basically, if you have,
it's liquid chi.
Yeah, if you have any energy tool, you are going to get the same effect as my powered pyramids. The only difference is because it has a powered circuit with the donut-shaped Rodin coil, it's that torus shape, the energy is ramped up like 10 times more than like a normal orgonite pyramid. So you get ramped up so high into that sort of etheric bandwidth, your dreams start going like, right? You just shooting off into, let's say you get a little helping hand, a little boost. So for like energy work, meditation, any kind of clearing work, it's basically like when you have your space ramped up to a very high energy potential, anything you do yourself, you have a helping hand, right? But early on, the first powered pyramids I was making, I just wanted to see what the effects were, because a lot of this 101 is actually online, but they don't give you a quote unquote trip report or like, the experiences in detail. So I used myself as a guinea pig. I was running it 24/7, which I don't recommend people do because it's very intense. I tell people, do a half day run, do like a dream session for overnight. But because I'm now making them and offering to the public, I have to know what the parameters are, right? So I think maybe 4 days in, 5 days in, like I was right up next to the pyramid while it's running, right? The last night before I turned it off, I had a zombie apocalypse dream. And now I wasn't scared, but it's like a movie, but you're in the movie. So I'm just observing everything, and I wasn't afraid. But well, number one, the dream recall, normally you forget. When I woke up, I could remember everything for like 20 or 30 minutes. And I have the notes somewhere. It's in my email. I basically put the bullet points and sent an email to myself. So I still have the notes, but there were zombies. Now they weren't moving very fast, but they were like walking,
Yes, that's what I hear mostly are the slower ones from people.
There were paramilitary guys there shooting at these zombies, and there were some kind of robots, or they might have been cyborgs. No, they were cyborgs, because it was basically just like in the animes you see. There were like these big, kind of like robot things, but they had sort of like a meatball brain. So they were organic, but the whole body was mainly mechanical. And they
were cute robots, right?
It was kind of like the Ed 209 from RoboCop looking.
Yep.
And they had, maybe the quality was sort of an intelligence of like a dog or something like that. And this is kind of like going into like a very specific area, but it's interesting, so I'm trying to relate what I saw.
Yeah, Terminator future with zombies. What do you know when this was, by the way?
I don't know.
Like in March?
Oh no, this was like in 2015.
Okay.
2015.
That's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, and basically, for these paramilitary guys, these robot things they were just robots. They're just extra guns, right? But the longer these things were working with the humans, they made sort of like a pet like connection. Like I was saying, it's kind of like a dog or something, right? But the humans, they didn't really pay that no mind. But in any case, I was there, and I had different shapes of pyramids, and I was using the Giza shape, which is the lower slope. And at that time, I wasn't using a full frequency generator where you could punch in any number. I was using preset chips. So none of this was in words. It was just through the visualization or the story of what I was seeing. I understood the message. So I was trying the different shapes. The high slope Giza pyramid, which is very pointed, it's like very high slope, pointy. That was the one to use. And I forget what frequency exactly it was, but it had to be 15 or 30 hertz, because those are the only two presets you can get at the common Hulda Clark zapper chip. That's the one a lot of the Organite people use. And the zombies, they just kind of like stopped and dropped to their knees. So
that's like in Mars Attacks when they go crazy from the yodeling.
So I really didn't know what that means, but the more that we're moving into this time now, I'm going, I hope I don't see no zombies. But it could be metaphoric too, where there are always forces that are working through people. And I'm very glad that I'm working with the tools, and I've been able to send out I think around 1,500 orders in the last like 5 years or something like that. And for me, well, I'll say this one thing, although it's not easy to go through what we're going through right now, I feel like I've been woken up, because I'm a crazy person and I'm just working 24/7, because I'm double fixed, and I got that Taurus,
Yeah.
I have a cat midheaven too, so so
what was your moon?
I think it's a Taurus moon.
You got a Taurus moon and a Taurus rising, was that?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, I get kind of numb to things, because I'm just making stuff every day, and I'm not consciously thinking about the implications of what I'm doing. But this major event, I find it, again, I don't want to be frivolous, but I find it a little invigorating, because now it's putting focus on like I'm doing the right thing, especially with all the good feedback I get. So yeah, I think that's one of the good things about this major shift we're going into. It's maybe we didn't, our kind of people didn't even completely realize what we're doing, but it's like you are now prepared. If you're not totally prepared, you have enough to really start like going operational, and we're in the flow. I would say that the esoteric and the practical application of the body workers, the people that are doing readings, the healers. I mean, we're right on track with what's supposed to be happening right now.
I just had the image when you said that we're in the pipe of the wave.
We're in the flow.
Yeah, we're in that pipe, you know, where it's curling over us.
Yeah. So,
do you use Sorry, I'm sorry. No, I was going to ask, do you use a pressure pot for your castings?
I have a degasser.
A degasser.
For certain things. I don't have a pressure pot, but
6 of 1.
I'm my number one tool is the bamboo skewer.
Yeah, pop those bubbles.
Pop them bubbles.
I bought a lot of resin, and I have shit to cast, and I just haven't done it yet because I've been doing other projects. But yeah, I'm ready to get into it.
So yeah, I mean, and again, like I said, you know, from the first time, whether you're making the little muffin-shaped so-called tower busters, right? It's basically the same material as the pyramids, but it's a little easier. You basically cannot go wrong with the muffin mold, right? Or you use a pyramid mold and you do an orgonite pyramid. You can make a good piece from the first time. The only thing that I would suggest is people muscle test. Use a muscle test to confirm the energy. Or if people that are dowsers, you can use dowsing to confirm the energy, because there's no off-the-shelf meter to rate the kind of etheric energies that are coming off of these energy tools. But you know, I think even a lot of your people, though, they may even be able to look at it physically or look at a photo. Like I can do this.
Yeah.
And you can say, is this one or that one, right?
Right. And
so
anyone can douse too. It's not just people who can douse. Yeah. Anyone can douse. You just have to.
You have to do it.
You have to do it. Yeah. And you have to see what it's like. And once you do it, you're like, oh, I see. And then the confidence strengthens your ability.
It's really like anything else.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you learn to tie a shoe.
It's like magic.
It's so Masaki, when you said you had a couple dreams, so you gave us the one, were they both zombie dreams?
The first one was, and I think I might have mentioned this on some other shows very casually, but yours is the first show that I'm kind of getting into this, because I know you on the Nox Mente you get deep into dream stuff, so I said might as well pack it in, right?
Yeah, so, well, that's our other show, but it's still relevant to all this.
So the first one was more of a zombie apocalypse. I should throw this in too, because like might as well put it down on record. It was happening in some kind of enclosed space. I don't know what it was, if it was a building or a tunnel or something. But I went outside.
That's interesting. A mall, perhaps?
It was dark, so I don't know what it was.
Okay.
But I went outside and there were some steps, like kind of like an outside of buildings where you see like, and it was more than a staircase. There were like maybe concrete steps, and there was an Asian guy that I think was some kind of scientist or something, and he had his hands on his face, kind of like what I felt like it's like, what did we do, or something like that. That's what I feel. And I think it was a Japanese guy. So I don't know what that means, but then that was the end of the dream. So well, by the way, there is some circumstantial things connecting Japanese scientists to this Wuhan so-called virus. Some people think there's no virus, but if you follow the eugenics mentality, and I don't doubt that there are Chinese involved, but if you follow the eugenics mentality, it's Anglo-American, and Japanese also have this mentality.
There's a virus.
Yeah.
There is a virus, and for people that think there's no virus, it's a biowarfare, and it's been edited, and it's out there, and it's too early for people to really get an idea for how it's morphing and playing out. There's only one, there are several viruses. So I just think people should sit back a little bit before the conviction of what's going on, before people lose all credibility in the end by having so much conviction with it. Let's just sit back.
Well, another thing is that in general, with a lot of things, there's only two directions. there's higher orders of like structure, like basically order, and there's like breakdown, chaos, and entropy, right?
Hmm.
And I mentioned this relating to this outbreak situation because one of the things that I spent a lot of time on, because I'm American, but I'm Japanese American, is Fukushima. I
Yeah.
spent many hours following it, and I was involved in some fundraisers out here in LA. And what happened in Fukushima, one of the kind of like the small details that a lot of people have never paid attention to, the behavior of the people and the animals
Yes.
uh, was very similar to things that they happened in Chernobyl. And
Yes.
basically, ionizing radiation is chaotic.
Hmm.
And so like they have these wild boars that people say, no, you don't want to mess with a wild boar. That
No,
boar will tear your ass up,
they will
right?
eat you.
So they have these wild boars that were just like nuts, like they're highly aggressive. That's one thing you see, and the people would become very belligerent and highly aggressive because they're basically being affected by the radiation in that way. So
Hmm.
I relate this to the virus because there's we know it's a respiratory disease,
The SARS
but
aspect, yeah.
there's more and more reports coming. There's even a thing that said zombie effects, because sometimes it's going up
Yes.
into the brain, and what's
Yes.
happening, they're becoming very belligerent, just like the radiation victims in Japan and Chernobyl.
Yes. See, you're right in line with some of the connections I've been making as an observer to this. It's completely uh, that's tied right into a lot of it. And this is why it behooves us to sit back and observe how it's going to play out. There are waves to it, and as it morphs, we'll know more. There's definitely and there are so many layers. There's the energetic layer, which is part of the mind aspect of it that people are feeding into, and what it could be, what it is. And then there's all the disinfo, the info, what's true, what's not true, the numbers being skewed every which direction. It just seems like we should sit back, and like Chernobyl, like anything, like 4G when it came out, we don't know. You're not going to just roll on 5G and have an immediate effect. Maybe some people. So I keep hearing ridiculous comments like, well, I've got 5G on my phone and nothing's happening. Well, what's going to happen to you in 20 years? Why are people that had cell phones and been talking through their ears for 20 years are now getting brain cancer there, or carrying them in their bras are getting breast cancer? People want this immediate now, these answers now, when some of these things are slow moving, slow acting. You can't see, smell, or taste them, but they're still insidious and doing what they're doing.
Well, and then also it's just like you're saying, there's a lot of people that say, well, the kind of signals that are coming from the cell towers, they're we we know they're extremely damaging, but
Yes.
to the above board they say no, nothing can happen. But one of the she's an electro sensitive but also EMF expert, Lena Poo, I've interviewed on my channel. She was saying that although it takes longer, the long-term effects of the Wi-Fi and cell phone signals is exactly the same as ionizing radiation.
Yes.
You get even cataracts.
Mhm.
I don't want to be superficial, but I do come from LA. So the ladies out there, you're gonna get premature aging. Okay, if you don't care about the 5G, you're gonna start to get them wrinkles early and all that. But basically, it's just a different time scale. But the long term effects are basically the same as ionizing radiation. But this is another reason why I didn't realize it when I started. Even I didn't really realize it until now, how important it is to use energy tools, because
Yes.
I really feel nothing is going to happen to me unless I do it to myself now, and that's using the energy tools, but also a combination of spending years, probably 10 years every day working on myself, and
Yeah.
then because I think it's people in general, but I kind of notice people in our area, like maybe we took on more than the average person as far as getting hammered and beat up. So when you heal and these are basically all the traumas and things. They're they're holes in your energetic field. So when you can heal, release, and close those out, you have fewer points that so-called attacks or things can hit you. So, even though, like, I mean, we're in it now, right?
Yes, it's go time.
We're in it now, but at the same time, I feel like nothing's really going to happen to me unless I do it to myself.
Absolutely, that's a major. You speak like a magician, and you have the tools there, and that's the thing, that there are tools out here, and you have them, but the internal training is just such a major component to all of the stuff in the outer world. And for whatever reason, here we are, and it's a good time for people to really recognize that the outer world is not what they thought it was. Reality is not what they thought it was, and assess and move forward. Like look at the nuance and start understanding how energetics, radionics, all this stuff works.
Right. And the Earth is flat, and we live under a dome, and space is fake, and everything is demons.
Well, we definitely live in a realm, right? Because it's like
we live in a realm.
We live in a reality field.
Yeah. Yes.
That we generate.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
Like we were talking earlier about the Vedism, and I have to say, I got the swastika in my blood. Even if I try to reject it, it was still in my blood when I was born. But guess what? Now I respect and I value my tradition.
Yeah.
But all these guys with the little G, because if you start talking to people that are deep into this, especially say some of the Eastern Europeans, the neo-pagans and so forth, they do not look at the ancient aliens in the way that most people do here, where there was these separate Anunnaki that came here and they manipulated. They look at the gods with a little G as their forebears. They're their familiars. They are bloodline descendants, right?
Yes.
So, but what I say now, I respect, but fuck these guys. I ain't gonna worship Orion, because the truth is the truth. The Vedism is about the truth. Yeah. So to me, that's separate than saying, oh, the great gods from Orion are serious. It's like, yeah, but guess what? In Buddhism, they say even the gods are delusional. The gods with a little g, they are delusional, and they are on the wheel of samsara, the hamster wheel, the wheel of illusion and delusion. It's just that they have more powers, so-called, than the average human. But guess what? All these MFs are on the same hamster wheel as us. So F these guys.
But in some way, these are just energy entities that represent archetypes, and they're stuck in that archetypal pattern. That's why they're dicks. Because
at some level, they are us and we are them too.
Yes, absolutely.
We're an amalgam of them, though.
Yeah. And I always want, because Niish, you talking a lot of the astrological, themes, but I wonder about this. Have you ever wondered about this? Why does it seem like the planets and so forth, why does it seem like the gods blew their brains out and we're living in their remains?
You Masaki, that's such a great image, and I have that same question, and it's interesting that we play into it. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it's a great system if you want,
but it is a system.
If you want to get to see just below the surface. I mean, I think but for the audience, although there has to be a lot of good readers and metaphysicians in your audience too, but just to say it aloud, basically all reading systems, esoteric reading systems, they work not by magic, but because they work off of the Saturn matrix, right?
Yes.
So I mean, even in the Chinese, the I Ching, they use the Ba Gua, right? So Ba is 8, which is the number of Saturn, and them hexagrams. People. If you look on like the flag of Korea, they have the hexagrams, although it comes from China. There's like 64 hexagrams, so forth. It's very computerized, mathematical. Even them dotted and dashed lines, that's like computer code, right?
Yeah.
So this realm is constructed on very known and identifiable patterns and rules, right? So that's how the esoteric reading systems work. I use numerology, but you can use any system because they all connect back to the framework of the reality that we're living in.
Aren't the what are they? Fu talismans? Don't those?
Which ones?
The Fu is Chinese.
I know
right?
it's Chinese,
Yeah.
but the symbols.
Oh, you're talking about lucky, yeah.
Well, the whole concept of Fu talismans and Fu magic, don't those center around octagonal shapes? I thought they did. I could be completely wrong.
I'm not sure. Usually it's on a square, but even the square is kind of cube-like, right?
Right.
I'm surprised
right.
you didn't look that up already, Jerry.
I just thought of it.
Have you ever seen though that the Fu that's like the lucky is upside down? Have you ever seen that?
Yes.
They put, why? Because in Chinese it's a play on the words. Because it's like, I think I might have my tones wrong, but it's like Fu Dao. So it says it's upside down, but you can also say like Fu Dao, like the luck is here. So when they turn it upside down, it's like the luck is here.
This is the one I was thinking of. This shape.
Oh well, that's the 8 signs, the Ba Gua.
Okay.
Ba Gua.
I know it has something to do with food talismans.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, Masaki.
Yeah.
Try this idea on, and it's not a new one. I know you're familiar with it, but what if? And I'm just going to use the Egyptian mythos here because it's the easiest because of the reference I'm going to make. What if we're all in the afterlife right now, navigating it in such a way that we see within the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and how treacherous the Egyptian Book of the Dead presents the afterlife with, and I know this is heavily in Asian culture as well, and even darker actually. But having to have certain spells to get past certain Maya, certain illusions, and
don't go to the light. Don't go to the light. The Saturn Moon Matrix. Don't go to the light.
Exactly. So, I mean, what do you think about that? Like, if we look at how absurd everything is, how crazy it is.
Well, I would say this, that now, we know about the New Age or the New Cage movement, but
I love the New Cage is perfect.
but there's this mentality that we gotta ascend and get out of this lower 3D and so forth. But why is it that every damn entity in the universe wants to be in a human body? There must be something significant about what we're doing and why we're here, even though we are at a very dense level. So I think that this is kind of like spiritual boot camp here on planet Earth, but I think there must be some things you can do in this level that you cannot do in other levels, and I don't really know what happens when we pass, but as far as the tradition that I was born into, which is the Pure Land Buddhism, the Amida Buddha, they say in the Pure Land Buddhism that we're only in the courtyard of the Pure Land. We're in like the waiting room, and we don't really know what happens when you pass. And they also say, compared to some of the other schools of Buddhism, they say you can never truly reach enlightenment in this world. You can have flashes of realization, They say like the true reality is like water, and there's like waves and ripples. It's kind of like that the Neptune Pisces kind of theme. And for a split second, the water goes clear and you see it, and then it just goes back again to ripples. And you will never, as a flawed human being in the Pure Land thinking, you will never reach the total realization until you die.
But what if, say, recently, say in January of this year, a major event happened, a catastrophic event, and we all got zapped, and that's why that we're in the afterlife right now, and that this is all part of the fractal of it, that we're all now collectively
in a life review
moving through. Yeah,
I see dead people.
Well, we are dead people.
Well, you know, the thing is that now I have no way to prove this, but this is kind of my thinking. This has happened before, it's happening now, and it's happening again. And all timelines are running parallel. So I don't know. I'm just doing my time on planet Earth on this timeline as I'm experiencing it.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. So the way I'm looking at it is we're at the end of a cycle.
Oh yeah.
And when every cycle ends, a new one begins. And that's what people don't really think about, is that this is in addition to an ending, this is a new beginning.
Yeah. I mean,
and as soon as we break through this threshold, and I keep getting these images in my head of like breaking through cellophane walls, you know, like
cows.
Like a birthing almost into this new room of a house, if you will.
Well, and you know, this is what a lot of people said they wanted. So you wanted it. It's here. So Jack, you better go active now.
Yeah. It's a well-fed ghost. That's for sure.
It just makes me, it begs a question. Did we manifest this?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you know, can I bring this up?
You can bring up anything you want.
Anything.
That 4-4 meditation that Wilcock and I think even some of the Q people.
Oh yeah, those are dangerous as fuck.
Hey, now
brace yourself.
Again, I fell on the, you know, maybe I gotta stop posting on Boomer Book, aka Facebook, but I said,
dude,
I didn't
Boomer Book.
I didn't get many people digging what I said, but I broke down the numerology for that day. It was not good. It was not good. It broke down basically to very 4/4/2020 is 4/4/4, so that's like super
death
chaos. Well, it's death because you know in the Asian cultures 4 is death, right?
Right, and 44 is death doors.
Right. So, but it's death because, well, you know, they say Asians ruled by Capricorn. We like stability. We don't like change. Well, what's super Aquarian Uranus energy? It's death, right? Because if you lose a job, well, that was a kind of death. If you break out a relationship, that was a kind of a death, even though the new thing's coming. But 4/4/4, besides that, is 12, and 12 in the numerology, it's the victim. It's very Pisces energy, and 12 is also the Hangman in the tarot, the 12th card. Right?
And
so I was just like, I don't know. I don't know exactly what this is all about, but just from the numbers, like they chose a very odd date to do that on. And if you think about a lot of that thinking, it's still kind of, although I think it is good for people to put out like a positive intentions, I think it's still somewhat, it's literally in the numbers. It's very Piscean. You know, of looking for like the savior or whatever. I don't know. I think people should maybe do that kind of thing, but in their own smaller groups, not attached to these larger.
Do it with people you know.
Programs. Yeah.
If you do it with people you don't know where your energy is going. That's pretty much the way it goes. And I think I would say to err on the side of caution that they chose it because it was a cool date. 4/4, you know, they did it, but that decision is driven by the energy of the time.
I forget what the previous meditation was, but previous date of the previous meditation was, but it was literally on a 12-day, which again is the victim, and it's very Piscean. So it came up twice. Yeah, but I have another dream.
Lay it on us, Masaki.
So this happened more recently. The first one was maybe 2015. This other one was maybe 2 years ago, year or 2 years ago, and it definitely relates to the cell phone frequencies, maybe 5G. But there was two scenes. One was outside, and it was normal street scene, kind of suburban. There was like one or two people just walking, but everything was coated in like the blob, like this pink goo. And the people, like the feeling was like, I mean, the people were acting so-called normally, but everything was covered in this pink goo. The shrubs, the houses, the people, and just the the energy of pink goo is like very kind of sluggish, slow, heavy. And in this pink goo was embedded kind of insectoid shapes. There are like crabs and maybe lobsters, some spider kind of stuff, but they weren't black, they were pinkish, right? So in my mind, I was just thinking about it. This is just kind of my read of it, that is probably connected to all these frequencies that are being beamed out. And these little insectoid shapes, they might be entities that are coming through and so forth. And just that feeling of being dumbed down and heavy, and I'm covered in pink goo, right? It's not that very uplifting, right? Cut to another scene inside a house, and the person basically had energy tools, and the space was clear. Well, I think the message from that is pretty simple. If you have the right tools in this time, you in your own personal space can be sovereign. You'll be fine. But if you don't have them, you're going to be covered in some stuff you don't want. And there's probably things being carried along that ain't good for you.
That's like comes back to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is just an easy reference, because to navigate your way through, you needed to know, the pharaoh needed to know the spells and incantations to get through, which are the tools, right? And so in modern day, it would be some of these tools we talked about today, possibly. And what are tools, at the end of the day? And so, yeah, very important, Masaki. Those are juicy dreams.
Yeah, and I think.
Sorry, the pink goo rang a bell for me. I'm trying to remember what it was. So do you remember when people were going ape shit about black goo and AI and all that crap a couple of years ago? Yeah. So I had heard someone talk about pink goo, or a non-black goo, right? That was okay. Let me step back here. So the black goo is allegedly "quote unquote" alien, right? It was brought here from another planet, or came in a meteor that the Nazis let loose.
AI. Yeah.
I heard someone talking about it, or I dreamt. I have no idea where I heard it, so it's in my head. The pink goo is the black goo of the Earth, of Gaia. So it's basically the lifeblood of the planet. It runs the grids and stuff like that.
Well, whatever I saw, I'm rocking the energy pendants and stuff.
Well, right. I'm just saying, all the shapes you saw were organic. Yeah. They were all organic in your mind.
That's true. They were, they were insectoid, but they weren't black. They were pink.
But insectoid is also reminiscent to me of nanobots. And if this is some kind of digital construct, the quote unquote lifeblood of the planet would be some kind of digital goo, which would have little nanobots.
Right, we probably got them right now. I was thinking about this, and I had talked to a couple friends, and I do think there is something to it, right? Well, everybody here in LA, especially, this is interesting now. Nothing against anybody's worldview, but it's interesting that the social justice wars. I live in Adam Schiff's district here in LA. So,
We're sorry. We're very sorry.
you know that pea hat, the knitted pea hat that became very famous.
The pussy hat. Yeah.
It came out of a shop like 5 minutes from me down the road.
Which shop?
I can't remember, but it's closed now because rents.
Yeah. I've lived in LA a couple times, so.
But it's interesting. The social justice wars are the ones that are pushing the social distancing and everything the most. But if it's not the so-called virus itself or some co-infection, because a lot of these so-called diseases, especially the chronic ones, it's not just one. They work. There's like a bacteria or working wrong with the virus and so forth. There's like co-infections, or just the fact that we're being sprayed by heavy metals, right? Well, if it's being sprayed from the skies, like 6 feet don't mean nothing, right? You can't social distance from the chemtrails, so.
From air, if it's airborne. This is one of the things I thought initially with when I saw this coming through, and is that it's like almost like in The Walking Dead where everyone has it. And it gets activated at different levels depending on your genetic markers.
Well, Morgellons, right? We probably all got Morgellons, but it's only expressed by very small percent. Why don't you guys talk for a second? I'm going to grab my AC adapter because my laptop's...
Go for it.
I'll be right back.
I forgot what I was going to say. Damn
it. Who do we have next week?
Next week, we have a very awesome guest that I found. He's an author of some books that I read when I was like 20 years ago that I loved 10 years ago. His name's Mario Acevedo. He's written a series of books about a character named Felix Gomez, who was an Iraqi war vet who became a vampire in Iraq.
Ooh, sounds juicy.
Came back to the States and became a private investigator of supernatural things.
As a vampire.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is right at my alley.
And his first book in the series is called The Nymphos of Rocky Flats.
Excellent.
Where he's investigating women being turned into nymphomaniacs by an alien artifact at Area 51. It's an amazing book.
It definitely sounds like a man wrote it, or a woman-loving woman that loves nymphos.
So you were talking about chemtrails and Morgellons. What were you talking about right before Morgellons?
Airborne.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So one of the things that stuck in my mind about the social distancing is that if you're 6 feet apart from someone, you can't share energy fields with them, which means, and I believe there's a certain amount of information that's passed between people, whether it's picked up on or not, when you're near someone and your energy field merges with theirs. By keeping us apart by 6 feet, our energy fields won't merge unless you have a huge energy field. Mm-hmm. And the truth, if you have it, won't spread as quickly. And it's easier to control people who don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. I think there's a level of that going on. I'm not saying it's planned by humans. I think that there's something else that's imposed that idea.
Well, the thing is, with my energy tool, actually any strong energy tool, whether it's they have like tensor spheres. I'm going to show this. We have the camera going. I know this is audio only. Let's say you have a tensor sphere, you have a strong orgone pyramid, especially if it's a power device, the range is even farther. But typically, let's say you just have a non-powered basically a sculpture pyramid, orgonite pyramid, right? I really only focus on, there's two ranges. There's a so-called ionic range where you physically notice a difference. So most pyramids, let's say if it's properly made, maybe a 4 to 6 inch base Giza pyramid on your bedstand, I would say the field probably goes maybe 12 to 14 feet. That's short, where you will definitely, no question, I got better sleep, right? But there is a subtle energy field that can go at least a block, or it could even go miles. You know, so this is also the importance of, you could say, because like I said before, there's two levels. There's one of just, you know, it can actually be fun when you start using these tools, but most people are thinking just EMF protection.
Mm-hmm.
But as a spiritually strong, or you could say energetically strong, right? Because another word for energy is spirit, right?
Yes.
We live
Yes.
in the kind of the yin yang world. We live in a 3D reality of the Saturn matrix, but the part that the dum dums of these AI people, they don't get, is you're forgetting the energy. You're forgetting the spirit. It's two halves of one whole, right? So if you're using the energy tools, you know, you are actually affecting more people than you know.
Mm-hmm.
And in the mythology, like when these you know, great spiritual teachers who were probably from some unusual bloodline too, but these great spiritual teachers, their kind of like energetic field was so massive, like the people could sense them coming from miles away before they even saw them. They're like,
Yes.
there's something,
Yes.
something's coming, something, the Buddha is coming. It's like
Right.
his energetic field was so massive,
Yes.
the people could feel something was coming, like
They're corona.
miles away.
The corona.
They're corona. It's honest.
Yeah.
So it's in like the Judeo stuff, the corona, the what else was another term? I just wanted to throw that out there. Big deal. The shining ones, the shining also is this field that people could sense.
You've always
that just
been
was a great
devout.
Masaki. It was just such a great synchro for me, you saying that. So
Yeah. Well,
got to call it the synchro so I can ring the bell.
yes.
It's just shop talk, you know.
It is just shop talk, but it's juicy shop talk.
Yeah. So I don't know what else. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, you know. That's the thing with people like Rock Castaldo or you guys, is like there's a certain level where any question can be, any area can be open, because we've all looked into enough things, you know.
Well, I personally think we're in a war, and I know Ra does as well, and so and people can take that where they want. I think it's actually playing out in lifetime, and one of the things that I think it would behoove people, even as we're kind of normal people, I guess, normies, to understand is that where we are with warfare now is not where we were with, say, World War II or Vietnam. It's a different idea. The tech is different, and what seems more nefarious. There are aspects that are just not seen, smelt, heard. It's energetic. It's viral.
It's 4D.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and I think it ties into, and I know Ra's there with me on this because we've talked about this on our shows. It ties into bloodlines, and I think part of this whole viral thing is an exposure of certain genetic markers, which is what I'm calling bloodlines now. And so I think in terms of, and with that, wars have uncertain endings. We don't know, we don't even know who all the players are. We don't even know. What we're seeing is some of the technology, some of the waves of attack, and yet we don't really know where they're coming from, whom they're coming from, how they're generating into our general lives. We are just being told to get inside and not go outside, and lock down. And I keep wanting to pose this question to people: are the people and forces that we think are good, are they really good? Are the bad guys really bad?
Trust the plan. Trust the plan. Well, I gotta say this too. Is like somebody got to play the bad guy. So
yeah, of course.
they're doing a pretty good job. But now in my time, in my work, I talk to all kinds of people, right? and what's interesting too, and then also just, you know, I come out of the rave scene here in LA, and met
Hey.
a lot of interesting people, right? So what I have found, now I may totally disagree with your position. You may come from a totally opposite worldview and be more so-called dark-sided, right? But this kind of, and I'm still going to do my work, and I'm still going to do the quote-unquote good thing, right? But what I have found that is kind of opposite of what a lot of people's mentality is like it's the good versus the bad and whatever. What I have found is more what Ra talks about, where you have the benandante and the malandante.
Yes. Yes.
But we are at a different level than the commoners.
Yes.
Or the mass. So the magicians recognize each other and actually have a somewhat of a respect for each other. And what I have found is if I don't say, oh, you're a bad person, how can you believe that? And we can actually have a good talk.
Yes.
And it's like do you understand what I'm saying? It's like we're on a chessboard and we're each doing our thing, and I see you and you see me.
Mm-hmm.
But actually I have little to no fear at all, because I'm doing what I'm doing. My field is very strong. And the only way I can mess up is if I do it to myself. And I also have said this before, that I think it's the first Indiana Jones movie where there's the blocks on the floor, and I think it's the name of Jesus, right?
Yes.
It's the Hebrew name of God. That's Last Crusade.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you know on the playing board where you can step and where not to step, you're basically untouchable.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because everything is rules and lines.
Mm-hmm. And angles.
You brought up, being able to talk to other people that the opposition, if you will, but there's a level of respect between the two of you, which the I don't know what to call them. The people who aren't at that level don't have. It's black and white to them.
Yeah, what I find is there's a lot of, not a lot, but say people that are doing things that I wouldn't do myself, is either they do not see the implications for themselves of what they're doing, or they don't care.
Oh, like Reiki.
So, well, yeah, I would say that there's no need to call on other beings or other gods or whatever. You can just say higher source, universal source, and you're basically sovereign, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But we're all at different levels. So if they need to get their ass whooped from what they're doing, then go ahead. But I don't have time for that myself.
You got to think about
either side. Sorry, Jerry, go on.
I was going to say, you have to realize from which source you're pulling that energy into you, because it's not just from, quote unquote God or whatever source. It's from whatever sees you asking to come in.
Yeah. And,
whatever side the person's on is the good side for that person. Even, even in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. We live in a very polarized, even I think 4D is polarized.
I do too.
Absolutely.
Well, but it's 4. I mean, it's got two.
That's where if it's true that the 4D is astral space, that's where all shit lives, the nasty stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
The things that want to get physical bodies. As you said before, why does everything want a physical body? Because a spirit can't bust a nut, basically, is kind of what's happening.
Who's got the funk?
Well, I've seen this a lot too, that I think a lot of us were already, when we popped out as little babies, we didn't know, but it was already in us. We have a certain sensibility of like, yeah, I like this, I'm not going to do that,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now when it applies to the more esoteric work, there's a lot of people, because it's opening up. The box is open now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, you had to go through some kind of initiation. You may have had to join some kind of fraternal order, magic order, to pick these things up. A lot of people, now this may shock people, but Scientology was a major crossroads for people in the 60s or 70s that picked things up and then went on, and they were no longer Scientologists, because pre-internet there was only certain esoteric orders that you can go to pick things up. Rosicrucians, Scientology, whatever.
Brotherhood of Light, like they
Right.
just certain, you know, they were there oftentimes in the back of magazines, certain magazines.
So, but now, you know, there's thing. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Teen Vogue had an article on sex magic. This Teen Vogue. I was shocked. I'm like, this is dangerous, man. But this is the time we're living in. It's every, you know, I would say 90+% of anything that was secret before is now just like it's in. You just type on the internet and you can find it, right? But a lot of people, it's whether it's in this lifetime or just their sensibility, it's the first time they're getting into this kind of work or the first time encountering this. So they're just impressed if they're using, say, a Ouija board, that the planchets moving around. They're like, "Oh my God, I got look!" And I'm like, yeah, don't do that. I'm leaving the room. Don't do that, right? So this is kind of what's happening. I'm seeing it a lot in LA. Now, California has always had a lot of esoteric things going on, but this is like the most recent wave. And you know, it's just the scene of what's going on. I think people are feeling out for the first time a lot of these areas. So in an Aries type fashion, they're going to put their foot in the shit and learn from that. But I think a lot of us that have been, I think really that it was born in us that we've probably done this before.
Oh yeah. So, yeah.
I think, you know, if you did it in a past life, then you're definitely going to be attracted to it again, unless you got hurt by it or something. But even then, you know, you got to work through that karma.
So, you know, I kind of cringe when I see because basically they're impressed that they got contact. I'm like, you don't know that. You don't know that happens, but you just opened a portal. You just made some kind of agreement, right?
Right.
But I kind of hide my eyes and I cringe. But the fact of the matter is, whereas before it was a very select group of weirdos and fringe people.
Spiritualists.
Now the mass is becoming open to this kind of knowledge and information.
And this goes back to my question: did we manifest this crisis, this current crisis, by exposing more and more people to that area, and those areas have more dark forces, dark energies come in that has manifested this?
Well, maybe, guys, dead JFK Jr. is going to come back and bring the new Camelot to America. Maybe we can do that. And you know what?
That is a narrative.
Maybe we can make Nasara actually real and get free stuff. Maybe that.
It's not Nasara anymore. It's Jasara.
Okay. Jasara.
I don't know what the G stands for, or the N for that matter. But anyway, I got a couple of questions for you, and we can wrap this up.
Okay.
Someone wanted to know, and I've lost it.
While you're looking, Jerry, I just want to throw out a happy birthday to one of our favorite people, Amanda Palmander. We love you, girl. Yes. I love you.
Happy birthday. I'm writing her a story on Twitter.
Excellent. Yeah, she's just been with us from the beginning, and we love her.
Okay, I found the question. Why is it that the dark forces always seem to have the upper hand in this reality?
Well, I think we just live in a fallen world, but that makes it more interesting too, you know. So,
and then someone else wanted to know if you were going to produce orgone-infused toilet paper and N95 masks.
It's a little rough on the behind, but I may do that.
You ever wipe your ass with a pyramid? Yeah.
The metal shavings can be a little rough, but in this time it may sell.
It'll take you to new heights.
You can make orgone butt plugs.
Oof.
Rough on the body, good on the soul.
There's this guy on YouTube. His channel name is The Old Lab Rat, I think. Have you seen that guy?
Yes, I don't put stock in what he's saying.
Really?
I would say this, because as I remember, he was saying that the standard formula that Don Croft put out in the 90s is bunk. Do not use orgone pyramids and so forth. I would throw it back and hit the ball in the other person's court and say, test it yourself. Self-knowledge is the best.
I've never heard him say orgone is bad in any way. I've seen him do experiments with cement, pyramids, and then douse the energy coming off of there. And he's done experiments where he's tracked energy fields from dead things and live things. I thought it was really interesting.
I saw one particular video. It's so long ago, but I wasn't digging what he was saying. The one video that I saw. But I would say that as far as the common energy tools, because I don't use plaster or cement. If you follow the recipe that was set down by Don Croft in the 90s, the 101s online, you pretty much can't go wrong. I would say just add shungite. That'll really bump the power up. And I highly recommend the copper tensor tools. With I'm wearing one right now.
Can you link all that?
Yeah, link it? What?
Well, can Jerry link it all?
Sure. I would say this. So we are in the beginning of April. I am totally sold out of my lower price items because I've been swamped. It was great, but I'm totally wiped out. I do make power pyramids. It's basically made to order. But my pyramids connect to a lot of people from the Spooky 2 Rife system. They found me through Spooky 2 because I've been on their show a bunch of times. And I also have connection to Berkana Labs, which is a radionics company in UK. Their radionics boards are powered by Spooky 2 generators. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people find me from those two sources. But I do offer, just so people can start out the box, I do offer a basic generator with a keypad, so you can put 432 hertz and so forth. So for my power pyramids, basically to run the current, some people are using Rife machines like the Spooky 2 Rife machine, or you could use a basic generator, and you can get my pyramids pyramid only, the power pyramid, or pyramid with generator. So it's kind of up to.
And I put links to your website and store in the show description and show notes, so everyone should be able to find that.
What kind of price points are we looking at from, say, your low end to your highest end?
Okay, the Giza power pyramid, which is a 160 millimeter base, which I think is around 6 inches. It's about 2 pounds. Power pyramid, the Giza one, it's $500 without the generator. And then the Nubian, it's actually the same base, but because the slope is so much higher, as opposed to 2 pounds, it's around 7 pounds.
Okay.
And that is $700.
And those are your advanced ones.
That's the advanced. Well, the thing is I do make basic pyramids, but only once a year now because I'm only one guy. I may have to get somebody else to help me make more. But I have thought about this because I told you that story, the dream I had.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I am actually thinking about making a zombie killer, a portable one, because this these power pyramids I'm making right now, they're not that portable. But I'm thinking about making a small Nubian shaped pyramid with a generator that you can power by battery. So even if the grid went down, you're still ready to run.
I love this idea. I love making it portable and small, and especially because you may not be shocked at the amount of people I've talked to that are having these zombie dreams, and they're all these slow zombies. And of course, I tie this into my possession thing. They're shells, and they're being forced out.
Walkers.
They're Qliphoth walkers.
Qliphoth.
Yes,
it is the Qliphoth, though. It's exactly what it is.
They're the shells. Well, yes. Just for re-emphasis, we already said this, but for those of us that have done our self-work and we stay on track, I think we're going to be fine. You keep your field energized, clean. You've done your healing work. You didn't know it, but you are prepared now.
Yeah, you dream your dream. The dreamer loves to dream. The dreamer awakens within the dream. Absolutely. What you feed grows.
I got one more question for you. Someone wants to know if shungite needs to be occasionally cleansed like quartz does.
Not to my knowledge,
Yeah.
because
No.
it has a very high. There's two stones. Well, actually, there's a couple stones that you don't really need to clean, right? There's a selenite. You guys know, great to clean other
Right.
stones.
Yeah.
Kyanite.
Yep.
And then shungite. So
And shungite.
you know, I had a friend in India that he tested a standard organite pyramid he had made years ago. This is without shungite. He tested it and he said it was still good, which is what they say. But I do put shungite in my pyramids just to kick the power up. But then if people have any question, well, do I need to clean it? It's like, well, no,
Not
and
with the shungite.
well, no and no, because you really don't need to clean it. But if you have any question, it has shungite too. So no and no.
Do you use elite shungite in your pyramids?
I use the typical black one.
Okay, so not the shiny black, which is the higher C60.
It's the elite shungite. It looks kind of grayer silver.
It's shinier. Yeah, it looks metallic almost.
And it's like 99.9% C60. But it's only 1% of the deposit. So, but I find, you know, a lot of people have my pyramids and so forth, and just using the black shungite, even if you put like 4 chunks and so like the corners, it really kicks the power up.
The main difference for me in the shungite in using it is because the elite, the difference for me is just in the water that you use it in. So I use it in my water after I filter.
Oh yeah. Well, I used to sell it for water, and you're exactly right, because I think versus like 3 hours, it might like take a day or two.
With the other, otherwise the other shungite, the more common I guess there's no way to call it common because it's magical and it's not common, but yeah, it's just as powerful as a magical tool as the elite.
Yep.
Someone was in chat talking about pyramids, so I think maybe we'll try and, when you get some lower price ones, pick one up and give it away to one of our listeners.
Sure. Well, you know, also right now, because man, I'm telling you, we're talking about the shift, what's happening.
Yeah.
It's like a switch got flipped, and it's like now people are beating my doors down like I got toilet paper or something. You know?
Spiritual toilet paper.
But every month on my Patreon, I do a giveaway.
Okay.
I have a $5 and $10 tiers, so the $10 patrons, you know, I put like a pyramid and some tower blasters.
Oh, that's very nice.
Great. Right, so everyone check out Masaki's sites. And do you have anything else you want to plug other than your store and your Patreon?
Well, it's akaida.com, it's my website. It's AKAIDA. Pyramid Power on Patreon. Akaida TV on YouTube. And then my Instagram is Masaki_1.
What's Instagram?
Don't listen to Jerry. I'll follow you I followed you on Twitter today.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited. This has been wonderful, Masaki.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was fun. And
it's
great to have a conversation with you guys.
Yeah, it was great talking to you too. And thank you everyone for listening. And be sure to tune in next week with our guest, Mario Acevedo. It should be really a great show. He's looking forward to it. So am I. And with that, we bid you adieu. Good night, everyone.
Yes. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.